Hopefully Olumide will be joining us soon. You know what, we were just actually, while we were away from being live, we were having a conversation about the problem of collaboration and how we might be able to model really good ways of collectively solving education together. And maybe we can continue that a little bit. Teresa, I think you were just saying something right as we went online.
Yes. I was saying that the reason why collaboration, hardly works is because most times it's a 1 or 2 day thing, and then after that everybody disperses, and that's the end of it. But if we could,
Yeah.
if Ashoka could convene a meeting of stakeholders, and this time around, not just the social entrepreneurs, but all of the stakeholders we've mentioned in this webinar, if we can have them in the same room, all we need to do is find very compelling common grounds to work on. And that will keep us in touch with one another, especially in terms of projects that can really be implemented, which can also be shown as an outcome of such an effort, concretely. So I think if we could do that, that would really be wonderful.
And I think to build on what Teresa is saying in terms of making it a long-term project, one of the things that I've seen being more successful is community organizing and really mobilizing young people and specifically parents to be more involved in the process of education reform. We need to build a movement that can put pressure on these different stakeholders, right? We need to organize parents to sort of they already see the issues with these schools. They already see the issues with education, but it's more about training them and giving them a voice and channeling that energy to put pressure on government and other private institutions to do something. So I would be really excited to see an organization that is committed to educating parents, but also just channeling some of that energy that I know they have.
Yeah, we know that intergenerational tension, you mentioned it before, that the fact that young people feel like they have to be put into their place, or that they, in Swahili the word kijana is almost an insult, and kijana is the word for youth, like that word can actually be used as an insult, is a real issue, and so figuring out how to manage the intergenerational relationships, maybe through creating movements or whatever, is I think a key part of that collaboration as well. Olumide, we were talking about the problem of collaboration and how we can make wide-scale change in the education field, and maybe potentially thinking about some of the solutions that we've seen for bettering collaborative partnerships.
Okay.
Do you have anything to say about that?
Could you probably go on with the conversation while I try to...
Sure. While you catch up?
Yes, catch up with what is going on right now.
No problem. Do you guys... we have about 10 minutes left of our conversation. I'm wondering if you guys might want to be asking each other a question. In the spirit of collaboration. You actually, all three of you are representing rather separate sectors of the learning fields. From Teresa and her work in lower education, primary and secondary, Olumide, who's like at the tail end after a university, and Alyssa in the university. Maybe there's some kind of question you have for each other about the work that you're doing. You had questions before we went live. Okay, go ahead, Alyssa.
Okay, I have a question for Teresa. It looks like...
Continue.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Should I go ahead?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Alyssa.
It looks like she works with all of that. She was talking the other time about ways of getting teachers to be motivated, and I think that's very important. Some of the schools that we've been to, for the Twin Academy Scholars Program I told you about earlier, one of the things I observed was that many teachers were not properly motivated. So in a case where you're talking to a teacher who doesn't even see the point of what you're talking about, that can be very depressing. So it looks like you've done a lot in that line. What are some of the strategies you've employed to boost the morale and increase the motivation level for teachers?
Okay, I'll just like reel them off. In terms of teacher motivation and professionalization, we've tried to bring them up to date by bringing teachers together in what is called the Teachers and Educators for All Assembly. So when we come, we deal with development issues, and it has to do with all the issues we know that pertain to education and to the development of young people, such as we cover issues even to do with reproductive health and safety, sexual, safety from sexual violence and all of those. And then, but in terms of the teachers themselves, we actually conduct what we call the Teachers Institute for Social Inclusion, because that is where we deal with some of these, problems we have all identified here. And we bring the teachers to understand these issues, to own the process of changing some of these, scenarios we have, and bring them into the curriculum. So the Teachers Institute is run once every 2 years, and we bring in teachers, and they're actually certificated. We give them, we issue the certificates, because very often we conduct this training in collaboration with other agencies. So hopefully, maybe one of these days, we'll do one in collaboration with Ashoka. And we train them, and the certificate is issued, and they're very happy and proud of the certificates because they carry not just our signatures but also the signature of our development partners. And then so we find that this is a very good what do I call it now, achievement for the teachers who participate, because it gives them an edge, even when they have to seek employment elsewhere outside of the school system, like within the gamut of bilateral agencies such as maybe UN Women or UNICEF dealing with education of children. They become more qualified than their counterparts who simply went to one teacher training school somewhere. So that is, they value that, and then they also value the fact that we have what we call the teachers' tea. It's Teachers and Educators Assembly, so we call it the tea. And when we come there, we make sure that teachers have fun and they learn, and we encourage teacher volunteerism. So that's a third one. I've mentioned the institute, I've mentioned the network, I've mentioned the Teachers Assembly, within which we have teachers volunteering for community service. Like Alisa mentioned earlier, we need to also mobilize the communities. And when we have these teachers working within the platform of parents teachers associations, we are able to take them to the communities where they do the public speaking. Then we hold what we call advocacy events, such as soccer events. And during the soccer events, teachers come on board to address the entire community in any location we choose, and deal with some of these issues. So in that way, teachers begin to find that they can actually function outside of the classroom. They can also actually function and become development agents in their own rights, because very often they are limited to just, come to this classroom, teach. You're teaching geography, teach geography and get out. So we make them to understand that it's beyond geography. You can actually be a teacher, across borders, across subjects, dealing with all these issues, so that when your students meet you outside of the classroom, you can help them. They meet you within the classroom, you can help them. And that is what we have been doing.
Interesting. Elisa, you had a question.
Yes, it was for Olu, and I was going to ask because he mentioned that he serves a lot of the students who are graduates of universities and perhaps students who didn't have the opportunity to go to university. So I'm wondering if you had the opportunity to talk to universities directly, maybe it's public universities in Nigeria, what would you sort of encourage in a nice way, I suppose? What would you ask them to do better, or what would you communicate to them as like some of your learnings, having worked with these students?
Okay. Well, I get to address university graduates or finalists a lot. I get invitations to address them. And you know what? Of recent, speak like that. What I just do is I first start by telling them the stories of the Ashoka Five. I call them the Ashoka Five. We won a competition earlier in the year, and I got to meet 4 very incredible people. And usually I start by telling the stories of those people. And many times when I tell those stories and I mention their ages, that many of these university finalists, they suddenly come alive. Like, how can a 23-year-old guy be doing such amazing work? And then, the average person is wondering, so what am I doing? So that fires them up. And it also shows them that being young to be doing nothing. Being youth shouldn't be an
Did we lose him?
I don't know.
Oh no. Okay, well, he'll come back to that.
Okay, can I contribute to the question, Alisa?
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, in terms of also what the universities, are doing, and what we need to be changing at that level, I'd like to speak to that, a little bit. In terms of like getting the students themselves to look at how the classroom scenarios are I'm speaking specifically about Nigerian universities, and where sometimes you find that the young people are so totally discouraged because of the let's say the lack of teacher, lecturer student rapport in those places. Now that could actually be a gap that can be filled.
Teresa, we're having a difficult time hearing you, I think.
Can you hear me?
Elisa, can you hear her?
Yes, I can.
Oh, she can hear her.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, okay. Well, I was saying that, those gaps, such as poor lecturer-student relations and the lack of facilities within the university campuses themselves could actually be opportunities for students in tertiary institutions to move in and show their own talents as social entrepreneurs if they are so, if they so wish. So those are gaps that need to be filled. And generally speaking, in Nigeria, we don't have good say classroom scenarios, even in tertiary institutes, and that is a real problem. It affects the learning, it affects the social interaction, and so on. So how can the young people themselves address this? Because now I'm emphasizing the young people and what they can do, because over the years we have always looked at what the government can do, what the schools can do, and they have done, well, the little they could do. So, but how can the young people fill the existing gaps? So to me, I think if you can, bring the young people you are working with to look at the gaps they find within their campuses and use those gaps as entry points into a social entrepreneurship. That is the point I'm making. That would be wonderful and a way forward.
No, I think you definitely hit the nail on the head. It's exactly what you were saying. To give students opportunities in their community to find ways of creating impact. So I know one of the things we do at ALA or with ALA students is they have to participate in some sort of community action project or a student enterprise on campus. So we give students the room to run businesses on campus or to run social entrepreneurship projects outside of campus. So oftentimes they'll do volunteer projects or they'll identify a need in a community and they will run a project. Now, we can do that on a much broader scale. It doesn't have to be just within the school or the university. We as educators and parents can organize projects or can organize students to or train them to think, to look at problems in their community, and then think about how can you, as a young person and a few of your friends, like get together and organize a community project. Like, we need to give students like the confidence to address these problems, and it is by like starting small, start in your community, and then help them see that they can make a difference.
That's right.
Hi, everybody. Lindsay is having some technical challenges, so I'm stepping in here. Thanks for rolling with the punches with us. I think Olu is back. Olu, did you want to finish your thoughts?
Okay. So I was talking the other time about young people realizing that being young is not an excuse to be doing nothing, and many times when you're in fact, being young is an advantage, and the funny thing is, many times when you give people examples, then they get fired up, and they see the potentials in and they see the number of things that they can do. So I've tried it a number of times. I've realized that it's usually very effective. You just walk them through a number of examples of people who are doing great things, and some of whom are also doing those things without going through the normal societal processes. In our society, the average person wants to just finish school, get a job, get married, and go through life, and that's just it. But by the time you tell them that they can be much more, and they have better potentials, there's much more that they can achieve, by taking some risks, starting small, letting it grow big, and stuff like that. And then you have wonderful examples to back it up, like Elaine and Ellen and those amazing people. You'd be surprised that many of them actually get fired up. And I've had people who have started things based on such examples.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we at Ashoka, we 100% echo and support all of that. Like you said, we had a Twitter question come in actually about this point, which was, young people can get fired up. They can go ahead and have ideas and create these solutions. But the question is, how about funding? I don't know if any of you have thoughts on that.
Okay, so can I start on that?
Yeah, go ahead, Olu.
Okay, funding. Well, really, funding is one of the biggest problems that entrepreneurs face. But the truth is, many times people think that funding is the real problem when it's not. One of the things that I encourage my students to do is to start small. Start with what you have. Start from where you are. Sometimes it's more important to have the knowledge and to start with that, and then you can grow it big. And you know what? Many of my students, as at the time they were coming in, some of them couldn't even afford the training. But you'd be surprised that for many of them, by the time they are halfway through it, they're already raising money to buy expensive cameras, relatively expensive cameras and equipment and all of that. And so you find out that sometimes it's not so much about funding, it's about just getting started. When you get started, nobody is likely to give you a grant for just an idea you have in your mind, but they'll give you money for something that has already started. So I think that for most people, they need to learn that it's better to start first. And when you get it started, there's a way the world works, that people start to gather around you and they help you achieve your dreams. If you told me a couple of years ago that Twim Academy would be on the level that it is today, I would have argued with you, because it wasn't looking like it at that time.
Right.
But you know what? I've learned that by starting, somehow forces gather around. I've met Ashoka, I've met incredible people, and all those things have a way of just generating traction for you. So if you don't get started, you'll end up doing nothing. Start first, and then you'll see that all the resources will come to play. And then one more thing. Many people think that the wise thing is to start big. it's not really wise. It's not very smart, at least most of the time, especially for young people. There are certain mistakes you are going to make. So if you start big, you're likely to fall very big. But if you start small and you fall small, you can start again. And so it's better to just start from the level that you are and let it grow with time. So I don't think funding should be an issue for anybody. Just start how you are.
Right. Thank you, Olu. So we're at time, but I just wanted to wrap up with echoing by saying something you said to me actually when we were doing an interview, which was to create value first, and once you create value, other people will see the value that you're bringing to the table, and they'll be there to support you, which echoes exactly what you're saying. Another Ashoka fellow called Marlon Parker says something which also echoes the same principle, which is create value first and then think about capturing value. And that's, at the heart of, as an entrepreneur, what are you bringing to the table? How are you solving these problems? And after that, after you've been able to really refine your answer, iterate on your solution, and then after that, you'd be able to capture value. So I hope that's been an answer to our Twitter follower that was asking that question. Thank you all so much for participating in this webinar. It was quite an engaging, dynamic conversation, and really cool to have everybody from all across the continent, including an island off the side of the continent. For those of you who had tuned in, we did have technical challenges, so we will have 2 videos which we'll be sharing with you where you can rewatch, but then you can also follow the Twitter chat conversation to see what our participants were saying at hashtag Africa Youth Forward, FWD. And with that, I thank you all. Lindsay was not able to join us back in to say her goodbyes, but thank you everybody for joining.
Thank you, and tell Lindsay we said thank you as well.
Okay, we'll do. All right, bye everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.